Hi friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Dr. Ritu Khosla, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science, MCMDAV College for Women, Chandigarh. Today I will be teaching you the topic, the Marxian approach or the political economy approach. Now, if we talk about the political economy approach, that comprises of the two words. The first is the political and the second one is economy. So it means that the common factors that deal with the politics and with the economy, they are studied under this approach. Now, if we talk about the politics, that is, it deals with the state. It deals how the government, it functions. What type of functions are performed by the state? What type of relations the individuals they will have the state? Or even what type of relations the individuals will be having with the other individuals? What type of rights and liberties are provided to the individual? So all this comes under the aspect of the study of the politics. And if we talk about the economy, the traditional view of economy, it talks about that how the exchanges are done, how the production is done, and how it is being distributed. Now, talking about the political economy approach, both these different subjects combinedly they provide an action of plan. That is, what type of function the state has to do in order to have welfare of its people. That is, it has to make the decisions, that is a part of the politics, and when it has to make the decisions, that what type of economic policies it has to pursue. The word political economy is derived from the Greek word politikos, which means state, social, and oikonomia, which means how to manage household economy. Oikos means house and nomos means the law. It is a science which studies the social relations that evolve between people in the process of production, distribution, exchange, and consumption of the material benefits. It also studies the effect of economic factors on the political system as well as the attitude of the people. The advocates contend that the various modes of production decide the various social formations in the society. Thus, it is a dire necessity to study and analyze the economic factors so that a stable political system can be formed and maintained. All the conflicts in the society are because of the economic demands of the people. Only when the needs of the people are addressed, we can have a stable and workable political system. Exploitation, wide economic disparities, unequal distribution between the various sections of the society always lead to continuous friction that leads to unrest, then revolutions. This necessitated regulation of economic activity and subordination of economics to public control. The result is the renewed mutual interest between economies and political science. A political system can be deemed successful only if it is able to manage the various demands and achieve a certain balance, equilibrium in the society. Only when the political system can tackle the various economic problems, finding solutions on the way, can it deliver security and stability to its inhabitants. A political system has to understand the impact of economic factors and then frame laws and make policies. According to Marx and Engels, it is economic factor that shapes the politics anywhere and everywhere. No political system can sustain itself unless it demonstrates its ability to cope up with the conflicting demands by evolving a somewhat stable equilibrium, harmony, or reconciliation. This requires a deeper understanding of economic forces and factors. Policy decisions or planning by the state, from the control of foreign trade to the regulation of the internal economic life of the community, will be devoid of essence unless the underlying economic issues are properly sorted out and resolved satisfactorily. Political economy is the interplay between politics, law, and economics, and how the structures and institutions develop because of the economic systems. It studies the production, trade, distribution, and wealth, etc. in relation to law and government. This phrase was used by leading economists like John Stuart Mill, David Ricardo, Adam Smith, and Karl Marx. Political economy is an attempt to understand the phenomena of the economic factors in the formation of any system. Mercantilism was the earliest approach that analyzed the economic factors but expressed the interests of the bourgeoisie class. This approach was substituted by the vulgar bourgeois political economy, which defended the interest of the urban and rural petty bourgeoisie. This appeared in the beginning of the 19th century and advocated protecting the interest of the petty bourgeoisie. They emphasized that the big business companies exploit the small bourgeoisie, especially during circulation. The vulgar bourgeois political economy approach conceals the real source of value and surplus value and thus negates the fact that the working class is exploited by the capitalists. It was Karl Marx and his friend Engels who revolutionized political economy. Now we will be studying the Marx viewpoint. Marx believed that private property and true democracy cannot exist together. He also blamed commodification of everything in the society. Also known as the founder of scientific communism, he tried to discover the role of material forces in the process of social development. His concept of surplus value and dialectical materialism are milestones. Marx and Engels, they said, established the fact that the economic system is the base of the political superstructure towering above it, that the interaction of the productive forces and production relations in the process of social production forms the concealed foundation of the historical development of any society, including bourgeois. Marx's inquiry into political economy was a lifelong journey. He viewed the fact that it was private property, exploitation of the labor, alienation of the proletariat from his labor that were the bane to the capitalist system. This all would also lead to the inevitable collapse of the capitalist system. As Marx wrote in Capital, capital comes dripping from head to toe, from every pore, with blood and dirt. He believed that true democracy could be attained only when the working class, the proletariat, would be in power. He said that capitalism had created massive productive forces that were in favor of bourgeoisie, but capitalism itself had the ingredients of an eventual collapse. Overproduction would lead to crisis, for there would be excess supply. Communism was another name for achieving political democracy. For this, the workers would have to unite and not let boundaries between countries separate them. The working men have no country, was his contention. The working class would have to spring into action. The workers would also unite the peasants and the urban middle class to form grand alliance to overthrow capitalism. Marx gave his theory of political economy, seeing the oppressive conditions of the working class. While speculators grew richer, the working class grew increasingly poor, malnutritioned, and insecure. Marx and Engels saw history as nothing else but a continuous strife between the two antagonistic classes, the rich and the poor. This conflict arises from the faults in the mode of production in which one class comes to gain ownership and control over the means of social production and compels the other class to work on terms and conditions dictated by itself. This conflict reaches its peak in the age of capitalism, when it can be resolved only through a revolutionary overthrow of capitalism, placing all means of social production, which are land, building, mines, forest, machinery, and capital, under social ownership and control, enforcing universal labor and ensuring full development of the forces of production. His theory is an economic criticism of the bourgeoisie and the capitalist society. He feels that workers feel alienated from their work and also feel detached because they are not involved in the process of production. The means of production are owned by a particular class, the bourgeoisie, who amass wealth and get rich. He contends that irrespective of the age, be it the ancient Rome, feudal, or the Middle Ages, there has always been a class struggle. One has always exploited the vulnerable one. If in the ancient Rome these were the slaves, plebeians, knights, the Middle Ages were marked by the feudal lords, vassals, guildmasters, journeymen, serfs, and in the modern bourgeois society, the bourgeoisie exploit the proletariat, the working class. Class antagonism exists in every society. Proletariat feels alienated because they insert value into every commodity, yet they do not get their due. They are unable to develop their human capacities and their humanity because the production system is based against the proletariat. But in a system of production where ownership is divorced from the act of production and objects are produced for profit in distant markets, those engaged in production neither flourish nor enhance their capacities. Marx believed that the mode of production decided the existing political system in that society. Men enter into definite relations because of the necessities of life, which are indispensable and independent of their will. The hostility between the two classes continues, which ultimately leads to revolution and collapse of capitalist system. Class antagonism exists because of the clash of the interest of both classes. One, the bourgeoisie, wanting to exploit the other, the proletariat, unwilling to be exploited forever. Because the modern day state is a tool in the hands of the bourgeoisie, the workers are not allowed to rebel for a long time. This time can span centuries, but ultimately the proletariat would rise in revolution. For him, matter was the cause of any social change. He placed the economic factors at the base, and whatever changes would occur at the base would lead the change in the superstructure that was built upon the base. However, economic determinism is understood as not only the process of production, distribution, and exchange of goods and services, but also the way in which human beings responded to the material changes of their existence. This approach says that all historical changes take place only when there are changes in material conditions. He even termed family as a bourgeoisie institution, for it is only through family that the property rights can be safeguarded, perpetuated, as well as inherited. He reasons private property has to be eliminated and placed in the hands of the society, which would be classless and stateless. Private property is blamed for dividing the society. The political economy approach focuses on the argument that all political institutions and activities are given shape by economic system that prevails at that time. Even the mode of production decides the pattern of political institutions and behavior. The approach believes that the clash of economic interest between classes is the main reason behind all social conflicts. Only if the economic issues are resolved can there be peace, goodwill, and harmony in the other relations. This clash occurs because the system of production is not organized on a rational system of production. A rational system means a system of production where there is a social ownership of means of production and distribution. Technology is advanced in such a way so that to maximize production and labor should be universalized so as to produce for the fulfillment of the basic needs of the people. Unfortunately, production is monopolized in the hands of a few in the capitalist system. This leads to exploitation of the proletariat by a few bourgeoisie. A revolution was inevitable, which would help the proletariat improve their lot, because only after the revolution they would be the masters of their destiny. The political economy approach was not based on principles but on the fact. The political economy approach was the materialist interpretation of historical development and a dialectical view of social transformation. Marx believes in the role of class struggle in systematic economic changes, and he used the economic and socio-political inquiry to trace the development of capitalism. According to him, the proletariat performed the role for producing high productive mechanized and socialized production, but they are not rewarded for that. The bourgeoisie appropriate the profit, which leads to contradiction between the two classes. For this approach, society is not made of individuals but is a sum of interrelations. All features of the society stem from economic activities. Exploitation is the feature that distinguishes between the social classes. Because the means of production are controlled by one class, it leads to inequality. The worker is forced to enter into an exploitative work relationship with the bourgeoisie. Unlike the pre-capitalist society, where the laborer was physically coerced to work even against his wishes, in the capitalist economy, the exploitation continues but is more subtle. Exploitation is inevitable because the laborer has to work as his labor is perishable. A laborer can feed his family only when he earns. Thus, he has to work and to be exploited in the process. The laborer has to sell his labor power to survive. The bourgeoisie owns the means of production, so are in the position to buy labor as their own will and price. Bourgeoisie thus is a profit-seeking class. The workers produce things, but the prices are controlled by the market forces. Marx minutely scrutinized the market economy in his book Das Kapital. He ardently believes that human beings are productive beings and add value to their labor. The unequal exchanges that take place in the society leads to accumulation of wealth in the hands of few. The laborer creates value in a commodity, but the profit goes to the capitalist and not to the labor. This gap grows every day, which leads to contradiction in the society. Their internal contradictions spell out for the capitalist system, and ultimately it collapses. The class struggle gradually takes an acute form. As the proletariat becomes aware of their exploitation, their loss, they rise in revolt. The laborers fight for emancipation and an end to all forms of institutionalized violence. The workers are engaged to struggle collectively and were told that capitalism was not the only alternative. The proletariat started believing that their interests were not subordinate to their employers, the bourgeoisie, but were diametrically opposed. The state was an instrument of exploitation that aided the bourgeoisie. The latter had created the state and all its agencies like police, judiciary, law, etc. to be an eyewash. Thus, we can say the theory of surplus value given by Marx is an outstanding concept. In Capital, Marx gives a detailed account of how profit represents a surplus value exploited out of labor power and of how capital is beset by inner contradictions exemplified in periodic crisis and a declining rate of profit. The bourgeoisie is able to appropriate the surplus value that is added to any product by the labor. It is a laborer who creates a value in a commodity but is denied to the profit of it. It is the bourgeoisie that benefits from the labor created by the proletariat. It is a laborer who is at loss because he continues to be exploited because he has to survive. Ultimately, the proletariat would rise up in a revolt, overthrow the bourgeoisie and put all the means of production, the land, factories, etc. under the control of society, that is the public. The proletariat would confiscate the various means of production and utilize them for welfare of all. Blaming private property for all the problems in the society, Marx floated the slogan, "From each according to his capacity to each according to his work." This would gradually pass all the property rights in the hands of the community. The state would slowly wither away. Okay friends, let me conclude now what we have studied till now. Now if we talk about Karl Marx, he was the one who led to the development of the concept of political economy. Though there were other thinkers also who had a different perception. However, we cannot deny the role played by the economic factors in governing the state, whether that is the political aspect or the social, the religious or the cultural aspect. All the system, or we can say the complete system, is affected by the economic forces, who is controlling the forces. And that is why the main aim of Karl Marx was to have a communist society, that is a classless and a stateless society. Neither a class will be there nor a state will be there, and there will be a complete equality. And he said that his philosophy will be based on the system that every person will be given according to his need, but they have to work according to their capacity. Thank you.